Have you ever noticed this moment? A man sits down to rest, scrolling his phone, eyes relaxed, and suddenly the room feels tense. A sharp comment, a cold silence, an argument that seems to come out of nowhere. Today, we are going to solve a deeply misunderstood problem. Why a man's rest can feel like disrespect to a woman, and why anger appears not because of rest itself, but because of what rest represents in the human psyche. Let me slow this down and take you into the mind, because this is where most people misunderstand what is really happening. When we say invisible load, we are not talking about chores, or who washed the dishes, or who paid the bills. That is surface-level thinking. The invisible load lives deeper inside the psyche, where constant awareness never turns off. Imagine a mind that rarely gets silence, a mind that is always tracking something. What needs to be done next? What might go wrong? Who might be upset? What hasn't been said yet? This is not conscious effort most of the time, it is automatic. For many women, mental labor becomes a permanent background process, like an app that never closes. Even when she is sitting still, her mind is moving. Even when she is quiet, she is managing. Now picture a man resting. His body relaxes. His thoughts loosen. He disengages to him. Rest is physical and mental recovery. But to the woman observing him, something very different is happening internally. Her brain does not register he is tired. Her brain registers contrast, and contrast creates awareness. In that moment, her mind silently compares states. He is off, I am still on. He is relaxed, I am still tracking. He is allowed to stop thinking, I am not. This comparison is not intentional, and it is not malicious. It happens instantly, below language, below logic. And the emotion that rises is not anger at him. It is frustration with the imbalance her nervous system feels. Mental labor is exhausting because it is never acknowledged. There is no finish line, no applause, no visible proof that it exists. When a man rests openly, comfortably, without checking the mental environment, it shines a spotlight on something she has been carrying alone. And what the psyche often does when it feels unseen is convert pain into irritation. Anger becomes the only emotion strong enough to demand recognition. This is why the anger often sounds irrational. It comes out as sarcasm, as sharp comments, as must be nice to relax. But beneath those words is something much softer and much heavier. It is the longing to be relieved, the longing to feel that someone else is holding the map of life for a while. Here is the critical psychological detail most people miss. The woman is not angry because the man is resting. She is angry because rest in that moment feels like proof that she cannot. His rest exposes her constant vigilance. It reveals that her mind has not been given permission to stand down, and when the psyche realizes it has been overworking without relief, it protests. Mental labor also includes emotional regulation, monitoring moods, preventing conflict, absorbing stress so others can remain calm. When a man rests emotionally, disconnects, or becomes unavailable, it can feel like emotional abandonment, even if that was never his intention. Her mind interprets it as, if I stop holding this together, no one else will. This is why timing matters so much. A man resting while tasks are unfinished, tensions unresolved, or emotions unspoken intensifies the reaction. Her psyche does not experience rest as neutral. It experiences it as increased responsibility. The load doesn't disappear when he rests, it transfers. And because this load is invisible, it is rarely validated. No one says, I see how much you're tracking. No one says, you can let go, I've got it. Without that reassurance, the psyche stays alert. Over time, alertness becomes resentment. So when anger finally surfaces, it surprises everyone, including her. She may not even fully understand why she is upset. She just knows something feels unfair, something feels heavy, something feels lonely. The mind, desperate to be seen, uses anger as its loudest language. This is the depth beneath that moment on the couch. The phone scrolling, the closed eyes. It is not laziness she sees, it is freedom. And when freedom feels unequal, the psyche reacts not with words, but with emotion. Stay with me here, because this layer goes deeper than behavior and enters the realm of power, safety, and permission. Rest is not just a physical state. Psychologically, rest is a signal. It tells the nervous system, I am safe enough to stop. And safety is never neutral in relationships where responsibility is uneven. When a man rests, especially without hesitation or guilt, his body is communicating something even if he never says a word. It is saying, I trust that things are handled. But the woman witnessing this may not feel that same trust in her own body. Her nervous system has learned something very different. If she stops, things fall apart. If she disengages, responsibilities multiply. If she rests, she will have to pay for it later. This is where rest transforms into a symbol of power. Power, in psychological terms, is not dominance. It is the ability to pause without consequences, the ability to disengage without anxiety, the ability to assume that someone else will catch what is dropped. Many women grow up without that permission. They learn that vigilance equals survival. So when a man rests freely, it highlights a power imbalance that has nothing to do with intent and everything to do with lived experience. Her anger is not about him enjoying himself. It is about what his rest represents. It represents access to peace, access to recovery, access to trust. And when one person has more access than the other, the psyche reacts with protest. Think about this carefully. If rest were equally available, it would not be threatening. If both nervous systems felt held, rest would be shared. But when one rests while the other remains alert, the one who stays alert experiences it as abandonment of duty. Not because the man is doing something wrong, but because her body reads the situation as unsafe. This is why phrases like "I deserve to rest" can land painfully in these dynamics, because psychologically, rest has already been unevenly distributed. When one person claims rest without addressing the imbalance, it can feel like claiming privilege rather than recovery, and the psyche responds to perceived unfairness with anger. There is also a historical and cultural layer embedded in this reaction. Many women have been conditioned to earn rest, to justify it, to complete everything before allowing themselves to stop. Men more often are conditioned to rest when tired without explanation. These patterns sink into the unconscious. So when a man rests, he is exercising a permission she may never have been granted. Her anger is not saying, "You shouldn't rest." It is saying, "Why am I not allowed to?" But instead of being directed at the system, the culture, or the conditioning, the emotion lands on the closest symbol of that inequality, him resting comfortably. Notice how often the anger escalates when the man appears unconcerned. When he rests without checking in, without acknowledging what is still being carried, that unconcern amplifies the power difference. It signals that he can opt out without emotional cost while she cannot. This is where the psyche feels trapped. Trapped in responsibility, trapped in awareness, trapped in a role that does not allow rest without guilt. And trapped systems always respond with aggression, not because they want to harm, but because they want relief. From the inside, her anger feels like self-defense. Her nervous system is trying to rebalance power by pulling him back into engagement, by making rest uncomfortable, by forcing shared awareness. She is not consciously thinking this, but her body is acting it out. And from his side, it feels confusing and unfair. He thinks he is being punished for being tired. He does not see the power symbol his rest has become. He sees an attack on his need for recovery. Both experiences are valid, but they exist on different psychological levels. Until rest is no longer a symbol of unequal power, until both people feel they have permission to stop without consequences, anger will continue to surface in moments that seem small but carry enormous emotional weight. Now I want you to notice something important, because this is where most misunderstandings are born. Anger rarely arrives on time. In the human psyche, anger is often delayed, stored, compressed, and released only when the system can no longer contain it. What you are witnessing in these moments is not spontaneous emotion. It is accumulated pressure finally finding a crack. Many women learn very early that expressing anger is dangerous. It risks rejection. It threatens relationships. It labels them as difficult or ungrateful. So instead of expressing frustration when it first appears, the psyche adapts. It swallows the feeling, it rationalizes it, it tells itself it's not that bad, or I'll deal with it later. This is not weakness. It is survival conditioning, but suppressed emotion does not disappear. The nervous system keeps a record. Every unspoken resentment, every ignored need, every moment of overfunctioning while staying quiet gets stored in the body. It builds slowly, silently, without conscious awareness. And because there is no safe outlet, the anger has nowhere to go. So what happens when a man rests? From the outside, it looks like the rest caused the reaction. But psychologically, rest is just the trigger, not the source. The real source is the backlog, the unpaid emotional debt. The countless moments where she felt unsupported, but chose peace over honesty. The psyche has a limit. When that limit is reached, it releases emotion wherever it finds an opening. That is why the reaction often feels disproportionate. A small action meets a large response. A simple moment of rest meets intense irritation. To him, it feels unfair. To her nervous system, it feels overdue. Delayed anger is confusing because it carries no timestamp. The body does not say, "This feeling is from 3 months ago." It just releases it now. So when she speaks, her words may sound like they are about the present, but her emotion is speaking for the past. She is not only reacting to what he is doing, she is reacting to what she endured in silence. There is also an important emotional pattern here. Suppressed anger often transforms into hypervigilance. When someone does not allow themselves to express dissatisfaction, they compensate by controlling outcomes. They manage, they anticipate, they overfunction. This creates a false sense of stability, but it comes at a cost. The cost is emotional exhaustion. When a man rests, especially in a way that appears emotionally disengaged, it disrupts this fragile balance. Her psyche reads it as, "I am alone in holding this together," and that realization pulls suppressed anger to the surface. The body reacts first. The mind tries to catch up later. This is why logic fails in these moments. Explaining, defending, or minimizing only adds fuel, because you are responding to the present, while she is expressing the past. Two different timelines colliding. Delayed anger also carries grief. Grief for the support she hoped for but never received. Grief for the version of herself who stayed quiet. Grief for the rest she postponed indefinitely. Anger is often the mask grief wears when it feels ignored, and here is the most misunderstood part. When this anger emerges, it is not a desire to fight. It is a desire to finally be seen, to finally be heard without having to stay pleasant. The psyche reaches for intensity because intensity is the only thing that has not been ignored. The man often feels ambushed. He thinks, "Why now?" But the nervous system does not operate on fairness or timing. It operates on capacity. When capacity is exceeded, release is inevitable. This dynamic continues until the suppressed emotions are acknowledged in real time, not retroactively. Until small frustrations are allowed to be voiced before they become heavy. Until the psyche learns that honesty does not lead to abandonment. But without that safety, anger will keep waiting patiently in the background, gathering strength, until the next moment of rest opens the door just wide enough for everything that was never said to come rushing out. Now we arrive at one of the most subtle yet powerful psychological mismatches in relationships, because rest is not a universal experience. Two people can use the same word and mean entirely different things, and when definitions don't align, misunderstanding becomes inevitable. For many men, rest is disengagement. It is stepping away from responsibility, mentally and emotionally, to recharge. The nervous system resets through distance, silence, doing nothing. This kind of rest feels productive because it restores energy. It is a pause from thinking, from problem solving, from emotional engagement. In his body, rest equals recovery. But for many women, rest is not about disengagement. It is about safety. It is about knowing that nothing important is being dropped. That someone else is holding awareness, that the emotional and practical load is shared. Her nervous system does not relax simply because she is sitting down. It relaxes when she feels supported. So when a man rests by mentally checking out, the woman watching him is not seeing recovery. She is seeing absence, absence of awareness, absence of responsibility, absence of emotional presence, and her body reacts to that absence not as peace but as threat. This is where the mismatch becomes painful. He thinks he is resting, she thinks she is being left alone. Both interpretations feel real inside their respective nervous systems. Neither is pretending, neither is exaggerating. They are simply operating from different internal definitions. True rest for her often requires closure, things addressed, emotions acknowledged, tasks shared. Without that closure, rest feels premature. It feels like stopping in the middle of holding something heavy. Her body stays tense because it does not trust that the pause is safe. This is why she may react strongly to phrases like, "I just need to relax." When there are unresolved issues, to her psyche, rest without resolution feels like avoidance. It feels like postponing responsibility while she continues to carry it. And the anger that arises is a protest against being left in a state of unresolved tension. There is also an emotional layering here. Many women associate rest with connection, with shared presence, with being able to soften because someone else is attuned. When a man rests alone, emotionally unavailable, it can trigger a feeling of disconnection. Her body reads it as distance at the exact moment she needs closeness to feel safe. This does not mean men are wrong for needing disengaged rest. It means the system breaks down when one person's recovery requires separation and the other's recovery requires connection. Without awareness, each person's attempt to heal becomes the other's trigger. The anger is not about the couch, the phone, or the closed eyes. It is about the absence of mutual regulation. Her nervous system is looking for a signal that says, "You don't have to stay alert. I'm here." And when that signal doesn't come, the body responds with agitation. Misaligned rest also creates a cycle of misunderstanding. The man feels criticized for taking care of himself. The woman feels abandoned while he does. He withdraws further to protect his need for rest. She escalates to protect her need for support. Both feel unheard. What makes this dynamic especially painful is that both are seeking recovery, just through opposite pathways. One seeks relief through disengagement. The other seeks relief through reassurance and shared responsibility. Without translation, these needs clash, and because rest is such a vulnerable state, any perceived threat around it activates strong emotional responses. Her anger is a signal that her body does not feel safe enough to relax. His defensiveness is a signal that his body feels his right to recover is being challenged. Until both definitions are acknowledged, rest will continue to be a battleground instead of a shared refuge. Until recovery is negotiated instead of assumed, moments meant to restore will continue to divide. The psyche does not respond to intention, it responds to experience. And when experiences of rest feel incompatible, anger becomes the language of unmet safety needs. So now, step back and look at the full picture, not from the surface, but from the psyche. What we have been exploring is not a fight about rest, and it is not a flaw in either men or women. It is a silent psychological imbalance that lives beneath everyday moments and turns ordinary behavior into emotional conflict. When a woman gets angry at a resting man, her anger is not random, irrational, or cruel. It is a signal of invisible mental labor that never turns off, a signal of power imbalance where rest feels unequally distributed, a signal of emotions that were swallowed for too long and finally demand space, and a signal of mismatched definitions of what rest actually means to the nervous system. And when a man feels attacked for resting, his confusion is just as real. He is responding from a body that needs disengagement to recover, from a psyche that experiences rest as survival, not neglect. He does not see the symbolic weight his rest carries. He only feels that his need for recovery is being punished. This is where awareness changes everything, because once you understand that anger is not the enemy, you stop reacting to it and start listening to it. Anger in this context is the language of unmet safety, unshared responsibility, and unacknowledged effort. The real solution is not less rest or more sacrifice. It is shared awareness. It is naming the invisible load before it becomes unbearable. It is creating permission for both nervous systems to rest without fear. It is understanding that rest must be negotiated, not assumed, and that recovery looks different depending on the psyche that needs it. When rest becomes mutual instead of symbolic, when responsibility becomes shared instead of silent, and when emotions are expressed before they accumulate, the anger no longer needs to shout. It softens. It transforms, and what once felt like conflict becomes an invitation to rebalance, reconnect, and finally rest together.